Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another fantastic DCCS interview here. Joining me today, I have the one and only defending champion coach, CJ himself from Team Liquid. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It is past 11 p.m. I'm just about to wind down, but I'm good to talk about the season so far. Pretty pumped up.
I'm ready to get you all wound up at this point in time because we
Oh,
got some very serious questions to ask here. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Team Liquid, former champions coming back to the DCCS. Guys finished last inside of your group,
mhm.
unfortunately, due to some circumstances that ended up happening. But Fly coming out swinging against you guys in y'all's game. And then, of course, not able to pick up that W versus EG. How are you feeling going into playoffs after what would be considered probably the worst possible weekend for any of the teams in terms of expectations?
Yeah, well, I think that I'm obviously pretty disappointed after the
Hmm.
couple of weeks that we've played. The whole team was pretty down on themselves at the time. It was very frustrating, especially the Fly game was a very frustrating game for them to play and to watch. But the good thing about the Corona season is that
Hmm.
everybody makes it to groups. So we had that in the back of our mind always that, even if we have a rough time now, we can bring it back when it comes to series. We have, especially last season, we played two best of fives in a row. I think every single one of our series went to the maximum number of games. So we feel pretty comfortable going the length of a series. And we're just looking forward to playoffs right now. We're just trying to learn what we can, build on what we have now that we've maybe got some stability to work off at this point, and we'll see if we can ramp it up.
Sounds like a good plan right there. That also draws us over to the next question I want to ask because you brought up specifically to watch. And that
Mm.
makes me think, as coach, did you like tie them down and was like, you have to watch this, learn from this, as you had to have them watch the FlyQuest game, or did everybody kind of like go back and like, all right, we need to reprocess with the players, like we need to go back, we need to watch this.
Yeah, I mean, after that game, there was a little bit of venting to be done just to make sure we got it while it was fresh and the points that we needed to hit. But after that, it was pretty much just like, let's reset after that game. There's no one's going to be in their full objective mind. Everyone's going to be pretty tilted after watching that. It's best to reset now, come back and we'll look at it later. We'll talk about exactly what we need to do. And I think that it's such a big learning experience, games like that, because we've had times in the past where we would throw games where our late game
Mhm.
was rough. I think in general, all the way through Horse Force's history, even going back seasons and different players, our early game has been really consistently good. And when it comes to the mid late game, sometimes the macro falls apart, and that's where teams with players like Zolo would be able to pick us apart because they've got really good strengths in that area. So it's a common problem. It's one that we've found ways to deal with last season and we were able to overcome, but
Mhm.
with like new players a couple times and obviously like a bit of roster instability as well, like it's hard to kind of overcome when it's hard to get that synergy between players with less time to work on it.
Yeah, and before we go off into the world of the future, right? I do have to ask you because this is a comment that was made by one of your players, right? And it
Oh,
was
nice.
a quote coming from Monizzle,
Mm-hmm.
your team captain actually, and he said,
Yeah.
"Shower diff." Because in week one, he said the difference between the game one and game two, which you guys went from having the worst stomp against you guys in DCCS history since season one, to
Yep.
almost replicating that stomp on Fly in week one. He said the shower difference was real. Do you force Mo to shower at this point in time as coach before every game, or what is there? Is the shower diff just a myth?
I have in imparted a strict showering rule, and that everybody must be on cam half an hour before the game with wet hair, so I can see that they have showered. Otherwise, they ain't getting on the team that day. It's very important, as you say, to be fresh in your body and your soul.
Mhm.
Otherwise, your plays are not going to be up
Oh
to the
yeah, of
same
course.
fresh
Mentally,
standard.
mentally, physically, emotionally, you have to,
Exactly.
go through the deep cleanse.
It's a cleansing, yeah,
I 100%
absolutely.
agree with that. Well, now you're going into the future, going to go forward a little bit of time. Uh, your team that you guys are going to end up having to go against is 100 Thieves. And I
Yeah.
think this team put on one of the craziest performances and has shown some very interesting highs and some very interesting lows.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys that you can share with that you kind of observe from 100 Thieves that you're kind of looking out for, or you guys not even worried about them? They're not on your radar.
So every team has to be on our radar when we come last in our group. I don't think we have the position to look down on any team from here, you know. But 100 Thieves is probably the team we scrimmed the most by a little way. So we have a lot of, I feel, insight into their champion pools and their style and how they like to work. I think
Mhm.
that it's fair to say that they're relatively one note in their strategy. I haven't seen them employ a strategy that doesn't involve getting mid jungle duo ahead early to any kind of success. And I think that when you identify that, and unless they're able to mix it up, which they very well might do, they've got some really good players on that team. But if they're going to keep playing the same strategy, it's about finding the silver bullet, and that's where what did Zolo play against them? Was it Malzahar mid
Yeah,
against the Asuo?
yeah.
And then they just couldn't get off the ground. It stalled out really hard in lane, and then at that point there just isn't really another carry potential. Jaybro is a solid top laner, but I don't think he's going to carry a game unless he gets very, very far ahead, and then the bot lane the same. You know, there's a really solid level of minimal performance across that whole team, but only the mid and jungle duo I've seen have been able to carry a game and kind of be the impetus and the trigger needed to get a win. And if you stall that out, then the whole team stalls out.
I can totally get along with that. And it does draw into some very interesting scenarios that could come about y'all's way. And talking about interesting scenarios, let's talk about if you guys are victorious, right? You guys have to go on to your Nets matchup. And I believe your Nets matchup is a familiar face,
Yeah.
somebody inside of your groups. If you guys do end up beating 100 Ts, you guys have to go against EG. And EG looks like a team that's had y'all's number. So tell me a little bit. Are you guys getting prepped for that? Or are you guys just like one step at a time with 100 Thieves and then you guys will focus on EG?
Well, I'm usually just kind of passively doing that. It's the kind of state where if I'm at work, I'm working from home, obviously, that if I think about something like that, I do have the
Mhm.
freedom to just like open up the notes doc, put something down and come back to it later and try and like just in the back of my head. My job is fairly monotonous at times, a lot of spreadsheet work. So I can just kind of, this can be ticking over in the back of my head. So I tend to think about it most of the time.
Mhm.
And I think that as it comes with 100 Thieves, as I said, they're pretty one note. It's about finding the silver bullet, and we won more scrims than we lost. I think that we actually match up pretty well against 100 Thieves as long as the draft is done well, and that's a really key moment of every game for any team against 100 Thieves is the draft. It's really important to set yourself up well there. Whereas EG is a lot harder to draft against. They have more options. They're a bit more of a varied team. They have multiple carry threats. Anyone can carry a game in their team if you give them a chance. And also, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of red herrings personally against EG as to what's important to them and what isn't. I think that already people probably watching in the chat as well have pointed this out that I was a vocal dissenter against praising Saint Siver's Aatrox, even though it's performed really well every game that it's
Mhm.
played. Like from my position, I still don't think that that's a key to their victory. I think that Cursed Wolf is way more important. I think that Scion is way more important. I think the support is more important to those wins. But that's the team is so good. If you have a player
Mhm.
who is smashing these games on Aatrox, be the least important member of your team, and he's still doing that, that's really scary. The team is really strong for that reason. That they have this many different ways to win a game.
Well, with that being said, I have one last question I'm going to ask you. And I'm
Yeah,
going to just let you flex your pure analytical muscles here.
yeah,
No TL involved. Don't worry. On the other side of the bracket, Fly versus IMT. What are you
yeah.
going to call? What would you call if you were to call how that series goes down? Because I think that's a very chaos-driven series, and I want to see: do you have the brain power to be able to to get right what the correct score will be?
Correct score. Well, Fly, as long as they play with Xin mid and Donut jungle, that's a vastly improved roster. I think everyone would agree with that. I don't think that's a controversial statement. And IMT, they almost pulled off a similar upset that Fly did to us with Mystery Van putting the whole game on his back and trying to carry from the Anivia position, and they almost brought it back. But um I think that Fly are more resilient in the game. And in the late game, I think that Van is very resilient, but I don't think that the rest of the members of IMT can step up to his level. And I think that they need to be able to do that against Fly, where once they have Zind in the mid lane and he kind of patches up that hole in the game with Buried Donut doing an admirable job in jungle as well. I think that they're also not a particularly strong team across the lanes, but against IMT, that's not going to be a big problem for them. I think Zind can hold his own mid lane, and the other lanes are set up relatively well to have a good early, and I think that they have better coordination and better resilience going on later. So I would probably say, are we best of threes, best of fives to
Yes, it's
start
best
with?
of three. It's best of threes.
I would say it's probably going to be a 2-0 to Fly. I think that Van is going to have some pop-offs, but it's not going to get him any Ws.
So if IMT even pick up a single game, that means
I
you guys can turn around and be like, at CJ, what the heck,
Yeah,
man? Just
yeah.
completely just can't guess anything. No wonder.
Yeah, well,
But
if you remember last season when we did a pre-show with yourself, Gus, and me for the
mhm.
playoffs, I think I got every prediction wrong there as well. Like
You
every
did.
single one, like badly wrong. And to be fair, that was with like predicting that TSM would win if they put Sung mid and then they put Sung top. Like, how am I supposed to predict that? How am I supposed to predict that? You know? This is what's gonna happen, dude. That's why we're gonna beat 100 Thieves. They're gonna put Sung top for some reason, and then we're just gonna win, I guess. That's just what they do.
Jaybird mid, let's see it,
Yeah,
baby.
you've got
But
the Ornn prepped to pull out. That's
the Orin threat going in with the Kled as well. Jaybird popping
exactly.
off. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you, CJ, for the ever so wonderful interview. Greatly appreciate it. We'll be looking forward to seeing that Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves game. And if, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to catch all the DCCS action, make sure you check it out every Saturday, Sunday. 4 p.m. EST is the start time. We're going into playoffs, so we're going to be seeing a lot of best of threes, and it's going to be one hell of a good time. So be sure to stay tuned and be sure to stay caught up on all the action.